Gentlemen, which brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Hey everyone, this is J7Jace with a video showing why Ramza Beoulve is an incredibly strong fighter, lore and canon wise, at least within the realm of Final Fantasy Tactics, and I'll even show all the evidence in game to back this up. I know there are other arguments, Google search results, and even websites, forum posts, and etc. that claim he is weak because he is just a squire, quote unquote, and his gameplay abilities aren't destructive or damaging like Orlando. But to clear things up, gameplay strength does not equal how strong they are in the lore and canon. If we were to follow this logic, then fans should consider Vincent Valentine to be weak because he is one of the worst characters gameplay wise in Final Fantasy VII. But back to the topic of tactics, I'll be going over Ramza's resume, accomplishments, and even show actual video clips of other characters in the game complementing his strength. The first time Ramza is given praise is by both Dicedorg and Zelbag early into Chapter 1. Keep in mind, Ramza at this point is still lacking in overall experience, but he is just talented as a fighter due to his natural martial prowess. In upcoming battles, he defeats many of the Corpse Brigade soldiers, and his first noteworthy opponent that he beats is Maluda on 2 occasions. She is a high-ranking officer of the Corpse Brigade and is sister to Wiegraf, who is the commander. So in short, he is not fighting any tomato cans. Next, Ramza also fights Wiegraf, and when he defeats him, he compliments him on his ability in combat. Again, based on Ramza's experience, compared to a more prominent warrior and commander who gave the Northern Sky trouble, this should show that Ramza is a prodigy and is in fact very high level and skilled. Now at Zeekden, it's probably debatable on who defeats Argath exactly. I want to say in the original, or at least part of Yasumi Matsuno's plan, it's supposed to be Delita in the canon and lore. But I still gotta classify Argath or Algus here as a tomato can. The only noteworthy person who he defeated or killed was Tetra, and she was no soldier, she was held hostage, and she was pretty much a stationary target, so he got a free crossbow shot on her. But either way, it's another possible name added to the combat record. Moving on to Chapter 2, we don't know how Ramza met Gafgarian, but he must have impressed him enough to let him join his mercenary group. Now let's take a look at Gafgarian's background. He is a bit on the older side, but he was a division commander of the Order of the Eastern Sky during the 50-Year War, and Dicedorg personally hired him to get rid of Obelia. So you have someone who is a skilled and ruthless swordsman and former commander. It's safe to conclude that he knows who can be a competent warrior or not, as based on his bio, he was only discharged over how barbaric he was, not because of a lack of skill in leading or in combat. Let's fast forward a bit. Now it's not known who exactly forces Gafgarian to flee from Xurchiel Falls in Chapter 2, but I'd probably bet $5,000 on Ramza, as both Agrias and Obelia compliment him and give him thanks, and even state that they wouldn't have made it to Lionel Castle without the help of Ramza. This again shows how capable he is. At Gold Galata Gallows, after he rescues both Mustadio and Agrias, Gafgarian also mentions how Ramza grew so strong, and at Lionel Castle Gate, Ramza defeats him yet again. And before the Cardinal transforms into Cuchulainn, he also mentions how Ramza is very capable because he is a Beoulve, and that is probably why Gafgarian was defeated. While we don't know the exact power level of Cuchulainn, it's probably stronger than a large group of soldiers, and because Ramza slays him, this again shows just how strong he is. Chapter 3 only adds to Ramza's resume. He rescues Oran, defeats Zalmor and his Templar force, and when going to Orban, he also gets huge wins over both Isolde and Wiegraf. Isolde is the son of the leader of the Knights Templar, Fulmarv, and he does lead the force that goes into Orban, so this does make him quite formidable. Wiegraf is the former commander of the Corpse Brigade, and before being defeated, he even states that Ramza is a worthy foe. So again, if Ramza is so weak, Why are all these enemies losing to him, and why are they talking about how dangerous he is on the battlefield? Moving on though, let's jump into Yardo as well as the first battle at Riovanes. This is where Ramza faces off against Merrick. Now I know I've given him some heat in the past with his abilities, not recommending him gameplay wise, and even ranted on his feet and whatnot. But in the actual lore and canon, he and Rafa are members of Grand Duke Barrington's elite personal assassin group called the Kamja, and they were specifically recruited for their unique matcher skills, meaning there are no tomato cans. Merrick even admits he can't defeat Ramza and retreats. Ramza now fights Wheatgraph yet again, and he defeats him. And before transforming into Belius, he also mentions Ramza's growth. And also, Ramza defeats Belius. Soon after, Ramza also bests Elmdor in combat. As for Elmdor's resume, he is a commander of the Order of the Southern Sky along with Orlando, and during the 50-Year War, he was given the nickname the Silver Demon by the forces of Ordalia and Ramonda. Before Elmdor retreats though, he also makes remarks about Ramza's strength as an opponent and realizes that the opponent he's facing is the one who defeated Cuchulainn and Belius. So based on all the facts and evidence presented in-game so far, it's safe to conclude that Ramza is not a scrub or wasn't a special fighter like how this guy says and Google search says. Like with anything in life, make sure you do some heavy research and look into what's true. Moving on to chapter 4 though, and we're going to skip a little bit forward, Ramza also defeats Melidel, and she is the daughter of Fulmarv, and she even compliments on how skilled Ramza is and isn't surprised at how he was able to defeat Wheatgraph. Ramza also defeats Barrack, many Southern Sky soldiers, he rescues Orlando, and jumping ahead to Limburg Castle, he also defeats the assassins, and when Fulmarv and Elmdor talk, this is where Fulmarv mentions that he is a worthy foe and that even Belius was no match. After this scene, Ramza fights Elmdor yet again, and upon defeat, Elmdor admits that Ramza is strong, and if you're on the War of the Lions version, Ramza adds tomato can on steroids Argath to his resume, and he proceeds to take care of Zalera, another demon added to the list. While you can add and argue that Ramza also has party members helping him in these fights, they follow him not only because of his beliefs and good heart, but the fact that he is one heck of a warrior. Continuing on why Ramza Beoulve is a G, he defeats Adrammelech, and this demon just one-shots Zalbag. Now, let's take a brief look at Zalbag. He is far from a tomato can. He was given the nickname the Savior of Ivalice for his accomplishments in the 50-Year War, and under his lead, the Northern Sky was able to recapture Lassalia. Elmdor was also killed while he was commander, and he was able to hold off Thunder God Cid and his forces. After Ygros Castle, Ramza ventures into Malone, and he is able to fight off Fulmarv, Clishan, and Lofri. And he also defeats Zalbag, reincarnated as a demon. Before I get into the final battles, in the side quests, Ramza is also credited and given thanks by Beowulf, that if it weren't for him, he would not have been able to save Reyes, and this happens on 2 occasions. So to reiterate, Ramza is not a weakling, period. So let's move on to the final few battles. Ramza is able to beat the last of the strongest Knight Templars, Lofri, Clishan, Barrack reincarnated, and even though he doesn't fight Fulmarv, he does defeat his demon form. And lastly, Ultima the High Seraph as well. So there you have it, everyone. This is all the evidence and facts to show that Ramza is no lightweight or weak fighter in the game of Final Fantasy Tactics. In fact, he is the greatest warrior in Ivalice. Even though he is a young wee lad that doesn't have as much experience compared to all of his adversaries, his battle record is just proven. So therefore, Ramza is the GOAT, greatest of all time. I really hope Google search changes that top result of Ramza being a weakling, because it's giving people the wrong idea. Remember to always look behind the curtain and do further research. Take care, Long live Final Fantasy Tactics, and all the best to you.